Homes in West Hartford, Connecticut are still selling under a week, but only if you do a few strategic things correctly. Um, that speed, that fast sale, it doesn't come from luck. It comes from a plan. It comes by design. Now, there are a few critical components that I'm seeing work for West Hartford sellers right now to create that leverage, that faster sale that creates multiple offers. And there is one of the critical mistakes that prevents people from doing that I'm going to get into in this video. As you're watching, if you're looking for a little bit more of a step-by-step hands-on guide, just throw in the comment seller guide and I'll send you our West Hartford seller's guide. That way you can kind of go through it at your own pace when you're ready. Happy to share that with you. Now let's get into it. The first thing that I wrote down, the number one strategy or component that helps a seller sell fast for a great price is, of course, pricing the home correctly. Sometimes I hear a seller say, well, it's really important for me to maximize value. I don't care how long it takes. Well, that's great. At the same time, the longer your home's on the market, what do buyers start to think? They start to scratch their head. They start to think something's wrong, right? Maybe the home is overpriced. Maybe there's something that we're not noticing that's preventing others from liking it. They start to second guess the decision. So time is not your friend when we're talking about selling real estate. If you're talking about investing in real estate, time is your friend. Once you own that property, hold it, treat it well. And the longer time passes, the more it will be worth. But in terms of selling, you want to maximize that first week, 7 to 10 days it's on the market. That's when it's new and exciting. That's when the seller has the most leverage. So I get it that you're not in a rush and you want to make every dollar possible. The best time to do that is that initial window. The second thing I wrote down is creating demand through exposure. Now, this one may seem obvious. At the same time, if you're just throwing the property on Zillow, you're only getting the casual buyers that are looking on Zillow. And yes, of course, serious buyers look on Zillow too. However, that is not the only place serious buyers look. If you're tracking using Zillow's metrics, oftentimes you're skewing the serious from the non-serious buyer. So of course you want to be on Zillow. You also want to be on the MLS. The serious buyers are working with agents. They want to make sure they're not making a mistake in the process. So when they have an agent, they're using the MLS. That is another avenue that people will use. And the agent will be sharing their market knowledge with that buyer. So the better positioned you are on the multiple listing service, as well as third-party websites like Zillow and Realtor.com and Trulia. You should be on all those sites as well, but you don't want to be on just one. I'll also say, be careful that you're not just leaving it to internet real estate sites. There are a lot of other ways buyers become intrigued in a home. One of the things we do on my team, I was taught this as a young agent, is you call or door knock the neighborhood on a new listing, because a lot of times people have friends and family they want to keep close. These are people that aren't necessarily looking on Zillow and Realtor.com and third-party websites. These are people that are like, oh my gosh, I wasn't even looking, but there's a home for sale next to my best friend or next to my sibling. I want to go look at this home, right? So you can catch someone's attention that may have serious interest who's not looking, right? So you want to have a real proactive agent who's calling the neighborhoods around the listing. May seem a little old school, but it has a big impact. Sign does a similar graphs a similar market. When you put the sign in the yard, you get the neighbors driving by, and that helps them, think of friends and family as well. And the final one, social media is extremely powerful. If you use an agent who understands the social media algorithms, it doesn't always require the fanciest video, but if you present it in the right way on social media, you can have a lot of extra views from people that are searching. You know, these social media websites are extremely good. They want to keep you scrolling, right? So they're extremely good at feeding people what they want to see. What do home buyers want to see? Listings, right? That are new to the market or they may not have seen in a certain light. So if your agent is experienced with these algorithms and getting lots of traction on their posts, this can be a great way to reach a market that is untapped for a lot of agents who are just throwing it on the internet and crossing their fingers and hoping that it helps. I've done a couple pieces on my Instagram page that showed how we actually get more listings in some circumstance, or more views in some circumstances on an Instagram post than Zillow's had. And it's not just a few more, it was almost double. So that type of exposure is critical. How do we drive the price up? Competition. We want every serious buyer who may be interested in the home to make sure they know about it to get you the best price. The next thing I wrote down is the preparation matters. However, this could be a mistake. Preparation matters. At the same time, I've seen people over-prepare and really get stuck on missing opportunities in the market where their home would really stand out because they wanted everything to be perfect, right? We don't want to do any major remodeling if you're talking about making a fast sale and maximizing value. We want to clean up what you have, right? Clean it up, declutter, a little touch-up paint, maybe painting a room here or there, or repairing or doing a floor here or there. But we're not talking about major remodeling. You know, some landscaping, light things that are really going to improve that walkthrough or that first impression. So a lot more to cover than I can talk about in just one video. So again, if you want that seller's guide, drop a comment below, write the word seller's guide, and I'll send that over to you to make sure you get it. And I'll leave you with this. If I had to pick just one mistake that is the most critical, more now than probably ever before, it's pricing it accurately. And this really comes from experience and seeing different scenarios play out. I've sold over 700 homes in my career. I've certainly made mistakes, right? And with each mistake, you learn. So right now, because of the leverage you can get with the right price and those multiple offer situations you can get with the right price from the start, really balancing that line between not going too low where you're losing your equity and not going too high where you're not getting anyone to make an offer, finding that happy ground in the middle and coming out at that price where you can get that buzz is really one of the biggest separators I've seen in a while. Because let's just talk about pre-COVID. You know, a multiple offer situation was very rare there unless you substantially undercut the market, right? Here, if you're pricing around market and you've got some great marketing, you are giving yourself a great chance at a multiple offer situation. But you know, if you go pre-COVID and you did that same strategy, it was almost a 0% chance you would get a multiple offer situation, right? So you might go a little higher in that situation because you knew the buyer was going to try to negotiate. In this market, it's the opposite. The buyers are expecting to pay asking price or more because the inventory is so low. So using that to your advantage with pricing. If I had to pick just one of the things we talked about in this video, I would say hone in the hardest on that, spend the most time on that. If you have any questions, you want to dive in a little bit deeper on any of this, obviously as we've talked in many of my videos, real estate is extremely situational. So if you want to see how this applies to your situation, dive in a little deeper. Again, don't be shy, call, text, email. I'm always happy to talk. I hope this helps.